this actually works. All right, okay, so looks like we're rolling. Hey everybody, this is Doyle, and welcome all the digital challengers out there, the businesses that are adapting, and the ones that are looking forward to building a foundation going forward. Looking to build an expedition, as I'm going to get into. So this is part two of the micro-learning sessions talking about the expedition that we need to go on, and we need to go on very quickly as well. So really important that we get sort of on track with this and that we make it work as well. So, all right, had a bit of trouble getting live today, so hopefully we've got everything that we need as well. Let's just go right into this. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about today that really sort of puts some of the pieces together in terms of how do we deal with what's going on right now? How do we actually look at building an expedition for this, and how we can actually start to cope and start to learn and start to grow from this as well. So that's what we need to be able to do as we get into this. Let's just see here. All right, try this again. There we go. Give it a sec. All right, so let's get rolling. I want to look at some specific things today. Number one, what I call the pain triangle. All right, number two is overcoming the pain triangle, right? Seems pretty self-explanatory. And I'm going to get into that in detail as well. I'm going to talk about the zones of certainty. And I've got a really cool diagram of how we can actually put these pieces together and what they actually mean as we get into them as well. This is actually a matrix as well. So I'm going to show you a few things on that. Number four is the system, right? What is that? How does it work? What do we actually need? What are the criteria that is so important today to help us get organized, help us build that digital foundation as well, so that we have it when we need? And then last off is the expedition. How we're going to put those pieces together to make sure that you've got everything that you need. All right, so moving on. Limiting beliefs, the pain, right? What is that? Well, we've got a couple things that we need to be concerned about right now. We've got, this is our belief system and our understanding. So we've got problems, right? We've got pain, and we've got somewhat paralysis too. Right? We're not really sure what to do or when to do it or how to do it or if it's going to work or when it's going to work or that sort of thing. So we have to look at that. And what's actually causing this is three things. Limited time, right? We're either stuck at home, we're not at the office, or we're stuck at home not being able to go to the office or do anything that's going to connect us with our business. So we really have reduced the time that we're allowed to do this. To build our businesses and continue growing our businesses as well as if you look at it from an audience perspective, our customer perspective, they don't necessarily have the time as well. They're in lockdown, in quarantine, in isolation, whatever the case you want to call it. The second thing that we need to look at is limited resources, right? And in today's shift, these are limited resources. Right. So we have to look at how do these interact? How do these actually play upon this problem that we have with businesses? How do we actually build that digital foundation or grow it or sustain it, maintain it? How do we survive to thrive as well? When the resources certainly are limited in this case, our time and our customers' time is certainly limited. And of course, the last one is limited money, right? There's only so much out there. Buyers are not buying, spenders are not spending. So we really have to look at how do we actually use this in a manner that actually gets out and allows us those tools and those foundations to be able to overcome these, right? So we look at the problems, we look at the pain. What are you doing with this? are you actually paralyzed, right? Or are you moving forward and are you doing something about it, which is super important as well. All right, so if we look at what I call the zones of uncertainty, right? It comes to how do we actually overcome the pain, right? How do we overcome the problems and how do we overcome the paralysis as well that we need to be able to look at. And what I've seen in businesses and around the world and even in my own, like what is actually causing this? And I think that we look at it from very specific direction and take a look here. And we have what I call zone number one, which is fear. We don't really know what to do. We don't know how to do it. We're scared. All right. Now, if we look forward and if this is a timeline, right, moving forward, we need to get past these different zones to be able to work effectively, to be able to be a leader, to be able to provide that for our business as well. So zone number one is fear. Zone number two is learning. Zone number three, right, that's where we want to go. That's growth. And that's the important step. And we have to look at it as a journey, right? How do we move from piece to piece to piece to piece, right? Where do we want to be at the end of the day? Where do we want to be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, that sort of thing. So we have to really put in a plan now to be able to overcome that as well. And if you look at this also in a bit more detail, there's actually 7 criteria as well that I'm going to get into right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so there's 7 criteria that we need to look at. And again, these are just micro learning sessions, so don't worry about understanding 100% of it. I am going to go into it a lot more detail, and I've got something that I'll show you that how you can actually learn a lot more going forward as well. So in the zones of certainty matrix, right, what do we have? We've got a lot of different things to be able to deal with that we want to make sure that we understand. So the first one is the state. And in zone 1, so again, I'm going across zone 1 to zone 2 to zone 3. All right, so we're progressing over time. So zone number 1, what does that look like? The state looks like chaos, right? Could it be any worse? Could it be any more disorganized? Yeah, possibly could, but it's pretty bad right now. So we'll take it as is. We don't need any more. Zone number 2, in terms of a state, what is that? That's comprehension. How do we understand the problem? How do we actually deal with it? What can we do about it? How do we, fit it into, okay, is this chaos, is this uncertainty going to be staying with us an awful long time? Potentially. We have to understand that that's how we're going to get to the next stage in terms of comprehension. And zone number 3, what's that state? Well, that's certainty. And if we can put in place all these different elements that I'm going to show you, that's going to create some definitive certainty as well. In terms of a knowledge map, number 2, that criteria, look at, it's a how-to. What do we want to do right now? How to do this, how to do Facebook ads, how to do email marketing, how to do, website development, how to actually put these pieces in place to be able to work quickly. And that's the main ingredient here, is very, very quickly. Getting to the next step in terms of knowledge map for zone 2, it's should I? Right? Should I look at this? Should I find out more about this? Should I do this with the business? Should I do this as sort of a sales process or a buyer's process or that sort of thing? And then the last one is could I? This is where, right now we're not at this stage, and that's important to understand, but could you actually do something different? Could you shift? Could you pivot? Could you, regroup, whatever you want to call it, reinvent, innovate some more, that sort of thing as well. So it's very clear that we need to be able to understand that. But we have to go through these steps from the how to, the should I to could I. Some of the symptoms, zone 1, no money. Quite simple. No money, no markets, people aren't buying. So really it shows up very clearly in terms of what's happening. In zone number 2, again, progressing forward, we look at news signals, right? What is your market saying? What are they doing? How are they interacting? Can you match that? Can you match your business foundation, your business with what your customers are saying and doing? And do we have new markets as well? In terms of zone 3, what we're looking at for symptom is confirmation, right? Does this actually work? How does it work? What do I need to know? How do I actually put in place? And we need to look at how are we actually building our digital assets. And if we don't have these pieces of our ecosystem or assets, that sort of thing, you're not going to get to zone 3 as well. Because as we see, that's where we want to go. That's how we actually overcome all this stuff. And if you notice, I went from zones of uncertainty, right, to zones of certainty. That's the matrix. The matrix is how you can actually do things and how you can put things together. Tools, what do we need now? Right in zone 1, we need a ladder or a life raft, right? Something to get us past where we are right now. Something to give us that. I look at it as you're in a chasm, so you need a ladder to kind of step up in terms of getting us out of this chasm, or it's a life raft, however we want to look at it. What's important though is that it's a one-dimension solution. Okay, it's getting on that boat and floating or going up that one level with the ladder or whatever the case may be. The second tool that you need to go into the zone 2 is a roadmap. And everybody's pretty much heard of that, right? It gives you general instructions of what you need to do and what you need to look at. It could be written, it could be, up in your head, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, doesn't really matter, but it's a roadmap. Cool thing about that is that if you look at it from a different perspective, that is two-dimensional. And why is that? Well, if you look at a roadmap, if you in the old days, well, actually even on your Google Maps or Apple Maps, you have two dimensions, right? You either go up the map or right or left, up and down, right or left, right? 2 dimensions. So it's pretty simple. Gives you some directions. You'll get to your destination, and you'll be able to do that as well. For zone 3, that certainty zone, what do we need to do? Well, we need what I call a flight plan. And if you're thinking, well, what's the difference? Well, guess what? We've added an extra dimension. This is a 3 dimensions. Okay, we've got up and down, left and right, and side to side as well. So think of it as being in an airplane. What do? Yes, they taxi along the runway. Yes, they move from city to city in 2 dimensions, but we also are able to elevate that as well. So we need a flight plan instead of just a roadmap, something to give us that concrete directions, that concrete understanding, that concrete foundation as well. In terms of strategic comprehension, what we need right now, we're looking for just a foundation. Doesn't have to be fancy, just can be quick, can be based upon your core business. Doesn't have to mean you're pivoting right away. It means that you're running your core business. So whether it's service-based, whether it's retail-based, whether it's food-based, you have that foundation as well that you need to work with. In zone 2, what we're looking at shifting. And zone 3, what we're looking at is surfing. How do we actually manage this, the way we're doing things and that sort of thing? And what I was talking about in part 1 was how do we actually look at this rogue wave that's being influenced by the economy, by people, and by the virus as well. So we need to be able to surf that, and that's how we get into zone 3. Outcomes and objectives, quite simply, just your offer. You need to do business right now, right? That's super, super urgent, and you need to deliver. Pretty basic, right? But that's the point. It has to be pretty basic at this point. To get into zone 2, we need to get into the ideation space, and we need to be able to test our assumptions, seeing if they're actually working, if there's a market, if our audience is actually receptive to that as well. And then in zone 3, what we need is new markets, and we need adaptation. That's how we're going to get into the next step as well. So that's how we get into zone 3. Now, in terms of timeline, right now, you can pick a time, start at any time, but typically this would be 30 to 60 days, right? This would be 60 to 90 days, and this would be 90 plus days. So it's not going to happen overnight. It takes some time to be able to develop this. But the point is if you have a plan, right? If you have an idea of where you need to go, then at least you're able to get there. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a foundation, you'll be all over the place. And there's another diagram I'll show you later on in terms of probably part 3. But how do we progress, right? Do we progress, do nothing? Do nothing, do something, right? Or as I call it, do strategic. This is your expedition. This is your expedition. That's what you need to be able to do to navigate this whole growth curve and that sort of thing. All right, cool. So the three critical things that you need to do now to survive, to thrive in the digital space, right? What does your business need to have at this point or within that time frame that you're working towards? Okay, you need, number one is your brand value. Who you are, what you do, how you deliver it, the essence of your business, right? That doesn't need to change. How are you defining that brand value? How are you providing, that opportunity to surprise and delight, right? At the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Next, what we need is we need a digital experience, and not just having a website. That doesn't count anymore. We're way past that. You need a digital experience, a remarkable digital experience worth remembering, okay? Remembering, there we go. I'm trying to write as fast as I can. So you need a remarkable digital experience worth remembering. So again, it's not important just to have a website. That was like 15 years ago. You need to look at how do you actually create that experience. And we've actually seen some really cool examples of how people are doing this right now in the restaurants, in the service-based business, in the retail business as well. As they're not just having a website where you order online for e-commerce, whatever the case. They're having sort of a combination where you can go into the shop, where you can get fitted online through their website or whatever the case may be. So they're trying to create an experience around this. And one of the best ones is restaurants being able to provide cooking for people who not really takeaway, but ingredients that you would take home, a soup that they would make at the restaurant, and then take that and cook it at home. So they've got a very cool piece. But if we add another piece to that as well, we can actually sort of combine all these three together. And the third one is your digital delivery. Now, this is how you actually get business done. Okay, it's being able to deliver to your audience anytime, anywhere, any place, you name it, right? To anybody who's part of your audience and your tribe and that sort of thing. So without digital delivery, you're not able to do that. So for example, let's walk this through. A restaurant produces food, right? That's their brand value. It's their providing nourishment, or it's no longer just about an environment, but it's about the food. Now, how do we actually create that next step? Remarkable digital experience. We give them the tools to be able to combine cooking with your customer, your end customer as well. So for example, a big one here is HelloFresh, right? You order the packages of food. What if you could have your local celebrity chef, or maybe not a celebrity chef, but your local chef, creating Zoom sessions or live streaming sessions that actually take that food that's in the box that you just got delivered and cooking that for a meal, right? So we're able to do that, all those three steps. We're able to have the food, we're able to have the cooking, and we're able to have the live streaming. So we need to be able to look at how do we have all these three pieces in place. Okay, and without the brand value, without the digital experience worth remembering, and without the digital delivery, falls flat. It's simply not going to work as well. All right, so last point was looking at, is this a safari or an expedition? And I had a pretty interesting discussion on this over the last little bit. This is actually an expedition. People were saying, well, if it's a safari, you have to go hunting and that sort of thing. But if it's an expedition, then what does that mean? And fundamentally, what it means is that it takes a lot of work. Okay. We're in the space of building an expedition. We're in the space now of helping you through that process, that understanding of what do we need, right? What strategies, what tactics, what understandings, what trainings, what learnings do we all need to be able to get to that next step as well? And if we don't have that, if we're not prepared properly, we're never going to make it, right? So we have, our businesses, we have, our base camps. We start here, we move to base camp 1 to 2, and then at the top, that's sort of our achievement, right? But guess what? It continues as well. So we have to look at the whole entire journey. This is the expedition. We need to get ready for the base camp. We need to get ready for base camp number 2, base camp number 3, whatever. It's no longer just a nice story, right? There's got to be some work involved in this. There has to be, a lot of things that we need to be able to do and to prepare for as well. Because if we don't think of it in the right terms, we're never going to make it, right? This illustration here shows that we're physically and emotionally and intellectually in these zones right now. And unless we have a plan, unless we have a process, we're going to stick in those. And that's where this comes in as well, doing nothing. But anyway, I'm going to get into a lot more detail on that coming up. I do have what I call a expedition masterclass, where we're looking at, it's a methodology in terms of how can we actually take these pieces and apply them directly to the business as well, right? So how do we look at, where am I in the zones of certainty? Where am I in terms of having these 3 pieces? And if you don't have them, you need to start working on them. But like I said, what we're going to do is have you join me. I've got a masterclass coming up. It's called the Digital Expedition Force Masterclass, and it's the 12th of May, 2020. And it's pretty easy to get to, bit.ly/digital, and this is lowercase, digital expedition. All right. That's the Expedition Masterclass. And this is where I'm going to show you all these pieces. We're going to put them all together. We're going to show you step by step what it is that you need to be able to do to make it through that zones, to make it through those different zones, to get to that ultimate place, the digital promised land or paradise, or maybe it's not paradise because it's still business, right? But this is where we want to get you to that end stop as well. So head on over to bit.ly/digital expedition and let's get you rolling, register there. Thank you so much for watching. If you do have any comments or questions, please ask them, or direct message me, or whatever the case may be. Really appreciate your time. And if you're watching this on replay, please hashtag replay, and I'll get answered to your comments as well as quickly as possible. So, all right, cool. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you online.